Hi, everybody. We're getting ready to talk with Doug Palmer. He was a submitter for the Young People's Address. He should be joining us pretty soon. So if you're watching live, that's what we're doing here. If you've got folks that have an important word to say to the United Methodist Church, please send them our way. globalyoungpeople.org/GCYP for General Conference Young People is the destination where folks have submitted their own witness to the United Methodist Church. Out of those video submissions, we have chosen Peter Sabwaba and Chelsea Spires, who will be our in-person designees to go and speak to General Conference in Portland next year in 2016. But we're doing these interviews as a way to follow up with everyone who has taken the time to submit some important thoughts about how the church should function. And so we're excited about getting lots of input for the Young People's Address to be something that isn't just something that happens for 30 minutes in Portland in 2016 and on May 14th, but rather is an ongoing conversation that young people are offering to the rest of the church. Their witness, their stories, their suggestions, their visions, and we're excited about all the different ways that that can continue to be a witness amongst United Methodists. So we'll be looking for we're looking for Doug today. He has a witness to share that encourages us to think seriously about the important connections that we made with young people, and also some of the marginalization that happens for young people inside of the church. And we'll be asking him about his suggestions for, what would he suggest to the United Methodist Church in general? What would he suggest to young people to move in a direction of reconciliation on those topics? So keep watching if you're watching, and we'll join Doug soon. Thanks. All right, hey everybody. Hello everyone, this is Carl Gladstone, and we're getting ready for our first interview for the United Methodist Young People's Address. Collins will be with us today, and we're looking forward to our conversation with him. These will be interviews that are, go ahead and talk a little bit, see if I can see your signal coming through. This time, Collins, I've
Hello?
Hey, Doug, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool.
Great. We are live, so that's fun. Always, we do editing on the either ends of these, so no worries. But and thanks for doing this today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
That's good.
I was perusing my Google Plus feed, which is all full of Walking Dead spoilers, so I didn't want to look at it anyways. Cool. Well, we'll jump into talking with you about kind of where you are, how you got to, be doing things like going to General Conference, going to Global Convocation, that sort of thing, so people know kind of your background a little bit, and then jump into, what your most important parts that you want to share from the piece that you shared for the Young People's Address submission process.
Mm-hmm.
And I might come back if there's something that pops out. I might ask you some more about something. And at the end, we've just been asking everybody to answer the two questions of, if you were standing in front of General Conference next year, what do you think would be the most important thing to say? And number two, if you had an audience with all of the young people in the United Methodist Church, what would you say? Would it be the same? Would it be different? Et cetera. And that's hopefully what we can share. If we share this video, hopefully we give you a little bit of a platform to do that.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Sound all right?
Yeah. One second. Let me just.
Sure. And my 1-year-old and grandma might be upstairs, so if you hear any screaming, that's what that is.
Well, I'm in the library, so if you hear anybody knocking on the door telling me to shut up, that's
that sounds good. Well, you all set to go?
Yeah.
Usually we do about 30 minutes, not try to make it too long.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, everyone, thanks for joining us. We are here today with Doug Palmer, who is another submitter for the Young People's Address. And we have the Division of Ministries with Young People chose Peter Sibwaba and Chelsea Spires to be in person on stage. But we are giving interviews with everybody that submitted, so that the Young People's Address can be more than just the 30 or 40 minutes in Portland next year, but can really be an ongoing conversation. So Doug, thanks for being with us. And yeah. I wonder if you would give everybody just a sense of kind of where you're coming from in connection with the Methodist Church and Young People's Ministries.
Yeah, awesome. I'm from Longs Peak United Methodist Church in Longmont, Colorado, as part of the Rocky Mountain Annual Conference. Grew up there, was baptized there, confirmed there, and spent my entire teenage years and childhood years at that church. But I got more involved in the United Methodist Church about 7th grade. A youth worker from my church handed me an application to join the Conference Council on Youth Ministries. And at that time, I had no idea what it was. He didn't explain it very well. I had no idea what I was signing up for. Put in the application, was accepted, and spent about 6 years working for them. And we put on events. I was the president when I was a sophomore in high school, and we did all sorts of crazy things. I often tell people they gave me more responsibility than they should ever give any teenager ever. So, but that was kind of the fun of it too. So, started with that. I went to General Conference as an observer in 2012. Learned a lot about the church through that process, and then continued to work in the church, serving my conference on a couple of different committees, Board of Stewards. We're now looking at different futures for the conference, including merger. I've been a part of those conversations. And this year we'll be attending General Conference as the first lay delegate from Rocky Mountain. So, and now I attend the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. Yeah.
Great. As an observer at General Conference, what was that like? What were the learnings that you got? I assume that means you were able to go and watch all sorts of different things happening because you didn't necessarily have legislative
Yeah,
responsibilities. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
yeah. I went. General conference is 2 weeks. I went the first week, which is the legislative committees, and I sat in the back for most of that time in the back of general administration committee, which deal with the restructure, or didn't deal with the restructure, depending on how you look at it, and those proposals. And through that process, I learned a lot about how our church is currently structured, what like what a central conference is, how all these different pieces come together to form this big organization, and how we do what we do. But then also through like plenary sessions and through our worship, got to see the church as a global church and see kind of, or begin to see the impact that the United Methodist Church has around the world as well.
Yeah, yeah. This is probably something that you saw, perhaps,
Yeah,
in previous general conferences, and
Mhm.
with just a little bit of change in kind of format of how we're inviting submissions and everything. It's standing in that tradition. And tell us a little bit about the thoughts that you shared in your response to our focus questions. A few things stood out, certainly on our end, your experience throughout the connection, particularly in the work with Journey to the Table, but also your ability to highlight some of the marginalization that young people experience within the church. Could you talk a little bit about your submission and what you'd like to lift out for people from that?
Yeah. My submission, I just wrote a submission in, but it talked about needing to tell the church about the true story that young people face in the church. There's so many wonderful stories to tell about young people going on mission trips, about young people taking part in community service and learning and growing, and the amount of vitality that we see in young people is a great story. It is definitely a story that needs to be told. However, there's also, I view, a problem in the church about not about silencing young people's voices. I think that young people's voices are extraordinarily important. I've gone to the Global Young People's Convocation and met with young people from around the United Methodist Connection. And there are some amazing leaders in our church, some amazing people doing some amazing work. But oftentimes we don't fully allow that voice to the table. And I definitely felt in my work, and I've seen it play out, of how hard it is to have young voices represented at the table. And we love to give young people roles and responsibilities dealing directly with young people, and that's great. But young people want to be involved with the rest of it. As boring as it sounds, they want to work through church structure. They want to be a part of more than just their own little sphere. And I think it's extraordinarily important for the future of the Methodist Church to find a way to bring that voice in, and for us to connect together across generation gaps about where the future of the church needs to be going and what type of things need to be happening. Specifically, I've seen this in not being able to get meetings for conferences and district meetings to happen during times that school's not happening. Young people are required, usually by law, to be in class most of the day, and that's when most of these meetings happen, and that makes it extraordinarily difficult for young people's voices to be heard. But I think there's other ways that we see this as well, of not making young people a focus, and not that it needs to be the direct focus, but I think that there's more we can be doing to help young people, help the rest of the church make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world.
In the piece that you sent in, you mentioned one example of small group programming as reported to GCF&A. Over almost 3 million small group programs reported, only 200,000 geared toward young adults. Does that exemplify other ways that you've seen young adults not sought out as kind of the core of, or as a core part of the community?
Yeah, well, I am 20 years old now. I'm a sophomore in college, and it was a weird moment moving over from youth into a young adult, and there's definitely this gap. And there's definitely this moment where nothing really connects directly with you. You're no longer youth. You no longer are part of all the crazy, cool things that we do in youth ministry. But you also don't really recognize with, adults. I'm not really ready to, have coffee in the morning with the United Methodist men on Wednesdays yet. So there's this
So early in the morning too.
yeah, exactly. So there's this place where I think a lot of young people connect with, not having a group to call your own and not having a group that can deal with issues that are directly related to young people. And I think that's also even more so the case if you are a young adult who doesn't decide to go to college and you decide to either go to technical school, community college, or the service, into the army or something like that. You really can feel isolated. And I'm lucky enough, I go to a university and there's Christian groups on campus. There's a couple of United Methodist churches around town that I can get connected with. But there is definitely this gap in education and in programmatic ministry for specifically young adults, individuals between 18 to 35-ish.
If somebody asked you what was the most formative ministry that you were engaged with as a young person, what story would you be able to tell them?
I think my time on CCYM was extremely formative. And so with the Conference Council on Youth Ministries, we put on events. We represented young people to our annual conference. We sat on different boards and committees in the annual conference. And because of that, I was able to do real work, and have real responsibilities and do things that made an impact in people's lives, really. And that was extraordinarily valuable to get to have that responsibility and take action and do stuff. While at the same time, meet people, really, really, really cool people from across my conference, from across the connection. And so I got to grow kind of professionally in that direction, but also my faith was able to grow a lot because I spent a lot of time in conversation around theology or around scripture with different people, and different people, not just my church, but through my conference and around the world, which was amazing. And so I think that experience was formative, in a lot of different ways.
Well, it sounds like also a good example of how what could look like just one more committee of the bureaucracy becomes kind of a means of grace, a community that is pursuing some things together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were at the Global Convocation in the Philippines.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was wild, and it sometimes feels like it wasn't a real thing that happened. It was interesting. The night we flew in a little bit early, so we had a day in Tagaytay to just hang out, enjoy the Philippines for a day or so. And then that night the storm hit, and between the time that I went to sleep and about 4 a.m. when we were all woken up to seek shelter, tons of people had come in from all around the world, literally, into our building. And so all of a sudden at 4 a.m., we were all huddled in this basement, and there were people there from all throughout Africa, and there was all throughout Germany and Europe and the United States. And it was interesting to have some of my first connections with, like, a friend of mine from Russia, to be about how do we barricade these doors so that they don't fly in and kill us, So it was just really bizarre, which is kind of hyperbole, and I don't think there was that much danger to us. But and I think what was cool about that is it made us bond like nothing else. And so then when me and that same guy from Russia, or other people that I had connected with through this experience of surviving a typhoon, had to get to the floor of legislation and talk about homosexuality, and we had very, very different views on that. We could much more easily, I think, accept each other with grace and hear what other people's opinions were, and accept that and be okay with that, which I think was, in the end, it turned out to be a really beautiful thing. And I think definitely the best thing to come out of Global Young People's Convocation that summer was the statement we made on the last night, that we as a community of young people around the world do not want to see the church split or move away from each other around hard issues such as our debate around homosexuality, and which was powerful, which was a really, just amazing moment of that conference.
Yeah. Does it bring up any particular preference for any particular non-lethal minor natural disaster to hit Portland that you might, if you had to choose one?
I don't know. I think your biggest concern with Portland is just rain and like seasonal depression. So
oh, there you go.
From my experience living now in Tacoma, so I think you should be relatively safe, though.
Sure. But if everybody's feeling down, we can hug each other, and maybe our conversation the next day will be better, right?
Yeah, totally.
Deep conversations about tough topics. Do you believe young people have a way to model those conversations that the rest of the church could learn from?
Yeah, I think. I wouldn't say that young people always do it correctly. I remember there's kind of this thought that's a wrong thought that young people always agree that we're a homogenous group that all is on the same things. We're all very progressive relative to the rest of the church and stuff. And that's definitely not the case. Young people disagree on every issue that everyone else disagrees about in the church. I think it's something that we're continuing to work out, just like every other part of the church and a part of the world, really. And there was definitely times at GYPCLA that individuals fought aggressively against each other, and it was not a pretty way of having a conversation. But I think there was also times where we could recognize each other as humans that care about this topic and go beyond just hate or a response to something that we don't like, and actually dive into what matters, and a sense of our humanity. So
do you push back against the idea that just bringing young people in will save everything? Everyone, regardless of age, is always moving on to perfection. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think that young people are a key voice that needs to be a part of come to the table and move us forward. But the idea that I know how this whole church should work is absurd. Especially, I'm a white, upper middle class individual who's grown up in the church. Ask me how to reach people of lower class, of lower economic statuses, or people of other diverse communities, or people outside of the church. I'm not really a part of that, and I don't know. And that's something I would love to learn more about, but you need to have other voices brought to the table with that too.
Yeah. So we were asking everyone, giving you a chance to imagine if you were on stage on May 14th of 2016 in Portland, giving the address. What's the one thing you want to make sure that you said in front of those delegates at General Conference?
So what's exciting about the young people's address is that it happens at the beginning. It's one of the first things that we do in one of our first plenary sessions. So one of the first things that I would say to all the delegates there in Portland is, first off, thank you. Thank you for your time, your commitment to what you're going to be doing throughout this long haul of General Conference. And also, I would ask that let's proceed with grace, and let's, in all the moments that you all and I will disagree over the next however many days we go, maybe be able to see each other as human beings, as our brothers and sisters in Christ, and may we handle those disagreements with a lot of grace, with a lot of love, and may we come out of this with something that we can all love and agree with and use to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world for the next 4 years.
Yeah. The other audience that we're hoping to draw in, particularly by sharing all of these thoughts both before and after General Conference, is to say to you all, if you had a platform by which you could address all of the young people in the United Methodist Church, what would be your most important thing to share with youth and young adults across the connection?
I think I would tell youth and young adults to get involved and to know that you have an impact and influence beyond your local church, beyond your youth group, beyond the small groups that you're a part of. Know that there is a connection here, and there's individuals across this connection that want to hear from you, that are excited to be in ministry with you and alongside of you, and are excited to support you in ministry. So connect with us, get to know the rest of the United Methodist Church, know what we have to offer, and don't be afraid to share your opinions, to share your voice, and to make real change happen.
So, Doug, you are a person that comes from the Pacific Northwest, yes?
Well, I'm from Colorado. I've now lived about almost 2 years in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay. Do you know Portland at all?
I've driven through Portland.
Okay. I was going to ask for what are those special places outside of the convention center where you'd encourage people to go and have good conversations together. I guess we'll have to figure that out together.
I think we'll have to figure that out together. I know that one of the staples of the Pacific Northwest is McMinimans. And I know that there's one in Portland. There are these restaurants where they've created old historic landmarks into really great, awesome restaurants. So if you get a chance, go to a McMinimans out there.
All right, that sounds good. My favorite story from Tampa, was when the gelato place had to close because the Methodists ate all the gelato by midweek. The first week, I think.
I ate at that gelato stand. I remember a moment sitting there in the community, like, I cannot stand this any longer. I'm eating. Just go.
For anybody that might be going to a general conference for the first time, you've been as an observer, you're preparing to go as a delegate. You got your top 5 how do you cope kind of things that you should leave with everybody?
Honestly, first and foremost, self-care is important. Sleep. Try to eat well. Try to, if you can exercise, try to get that. It is a long haul. It is a long time. Be sure to take care of yourself. 2 would be meet as many people as you can possibly can. There are amazing, amazing individuals all around you. And if you find somebody that's connected with all these individuals, walk around with them and meet as many people as you can. And I don't know.
Good.
That would be, I think that would be my top 2.
Well, that's great, Doug. Thanks so much for sharing. If folks want to find you, connect with you, ask you some more questions, where would you direct them? Are you online somewhere where you'd prefer to get some engagement that way?
Yeah, you can find me. My email address is great, dwpalmer@ups.edu. Or you can also, I'm on Twitter at @thatdougdude. That Doug Dude on Twitter. So.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing. Thanks so much for being a part of the Young People's Address. And we'll continue to share your and all of our submitters' ideas out there to build this into an ongoing conversation with the church. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you so much. Good luck on the rest of this.
Hey, that's great. We will be doing a little bit of editing of the video, put that up on the YouTube feed. Mm-hmm. We're going to grab the audio and put it into the podcast feed. And Joel Richardson he's working on getting the iTunes connection there. Anyway,
okay, cool.
When we get any of those links, I'll send them to you. Okay. We'll probably put them up now and then do another kind of round of sending them through the feed or sharing things that we do. We're going to try to say, the 10 weeks ahead of General Conference and the 10 weeks after, we'd like to feature these interviews so that people are really, getting engaged for that time there. And one of the things we're going to ask for people to do in the delegation, and since you'll be sitting there as a delegate.
Yep.
Yeah. So this might be a really cool way to for you have a little insight on what we're going to be asking people to do, which is we're going to try to provide postcards for people during the address so that they can send a note to someone who's not in the room to say, hey, I just heard this really good thing from so-and-so, or they showed this video and I saw some youth doing this cool thing. They can send that to their local pastor. They can send an agape note to a young person that they know, something like that. And we'll just be inviting them to drop those back off at the Young People's Lounge, and we'll send them for them.
Well, that's awesome. That's what
try to just get a little bit of engagement going, and then beyond just, hey, go to our website, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So just watch for that, and thanks. If you have any questions as we go, feel free to get in touch with me. And thanks for all the you created, I think, the best buzz around your submission and things. So there's a lot of engagement, so I appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, thanks for. I mean, I'm excited about what you guys are doing about this. And Chelsea worked on Journey to the Table with me.
Oh yeah.
So I met her in Nashville about a year ago, and she was in the Philippines with us. So and I haven't met the other guy before, but I know that they'll do great work. I'm really excited to see what you guys put together.
Yeah, and then we've had a couple of Skypes together, and I think they'll be good, a good team, a good combo.
Awesome. Yeah, good, cool.
And all the conversations I've had with everybody, I just think, oh gosh, it would be great if General Conference was just a week of listening to all these people say things. I think that'd be great.
Might be more productive,
Yeah. Exactly. All right, man. I'll send you some links when we get these up, but probably early next week. And
no worries, yeah.
Feel free to share, and then we'll let you know too if we're gonna feature them.
Okay, cool, perfect.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, thank you. Have fun.
Bye.